We've all heard how passengers arriving in Australia are forced to go into mandatory quarantine to help stop that virus spreading, but not everyone has to, with billionaire mining and media mogul Kerry Stokes and his wife spared from 14-day lockdown on medical grounds after arriving in Perth from Colorado 2 weeks ago.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And the story of the Perth billionaire skipping a hotel lockup for the comforts of home was always going to be an easy target for rival media. Starting in WA Today, which broke the story of Kerry's home run, and also popping up on news.com.au, The Guardian, The Daily Mail and Studio 10, where Kerry Ann Kennelly was not impressed.
Look, it was a medical exemption. I do think it just is such a bad look.
While Nine's Perth News also made sure its viewers knew all about it.
It's been revealed WA media mogul Kerry Stokes managed to skip hotel quarantine when he flew back from his ski lodge in Aspen, Colorado.
And yet, strangely enough, at top rating 7, viewers heard nothing. Nor did readers of Perth's only daily newspaper, The West Australian. And Kerry's homecoming was nowhere to be seen on the Perth Now news site. And why is that? Well, as you probably guessed, it's Kerry Stokes who owns them all. Indeed, WA is Australia's most concentrated media market, with 7 West Media owning the top-rating TV station, plus its most read newspaper and website. So, negative stories about the boss can be missed by much of the state. But, remarkably, 7 reporters were on the slopes near Kerry's lodge last month when a group of Australians tested positive.
They are among 13 Australians currently in isolation. 10 have tested positively, and concerning for this town, like so many here, is that there is now community transmission.
We're glad Mr Stokes was not among them. And while the billionaire did avoid a hotel lockdown, he still had a 2-week quarantine at home, where no doubt he was working hard to save his media empire. 7 West Media has apparently applied for help from the JobKeeper program to keep staff employed as advertising revenue tanks and bankers circle the group. But to qualify, group revenue has to fall by 50%. So these must be really tough times for 7 and its 4,000 staff. But now, to disappointing news for some media boosters that a drug touted as a potential cure or treatment for COVID-19 does not appear to work and can have serious side effects.
A panel of doctors with the NIH is issuing a new warning about a drug touted repeatedly by President Trump, hydroxychloroquine.
What do you have to lose? They've been taking it for 40 years for malaria.
It comes as a small analysis among VA hospitals found a higher mortality rate among patients given hydroxychloroquine. Researchers involved say they did not find the drug to be effective.
The American study, which has not been peer-reviewed and is not randomised but is being taken seriously by health authorities, looked at 368 COVID-19 cases treated in US veterans' hospitals.
It found that hydroxychloroquine didn't reduce a patient's risk of dying or need for a ventilator, instead concluding that the death rate was much higher among those who took the medication than those who just received standard care.
Meanwhile, another trial of high doses of the drug has been stopped 6 days in after some patients suffered serious heart problems and 11 died. And all this is big news in America because only last month President Trump was trumpeting hydroxychloroquine as possibly one of the biggest game changers in the history of medicine.
It's shown very encouraging, very encouraging early results. If things don't go as planned, it's not going to kill anybody. It will be wonderful. It'll be so beautiful. It'll be a gift from heaven if it works.
The president's friend and lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, has also been spruiking the drug, claiming in a tweet that was quickly taken down by Twitter,
hydroxychloroquine has been shown to have a 100% effective rate treating COVID-19.
And Trump's media mates at Fox News have been equally enthusiastic about the drug's potential.
We're talking about hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine. Chloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine.
But it's not just in America that the drug has had its cheer squad. When Donald Trump's critics, including Dr. Anthony Fauci, head of his coronavirus task force, warned the treatment had not been properly tested and might be unsafe, Sky News in Australia jumped to the president's defence, citing Trump derangement syndrome.
Such is the media antagonism towards Trump that journalists are talking down the value of these drugs seemingly because Trump is placing faith in them.
It's just another example of the media being so demented with Trump hatred that they cannot just report things in a straight manner, even during a global pandemic.
Sky News also pumped up the prospects of the drug, with Outsiders host James Morrow claiming
there's a fast-growing body of evidence that suggests the drug, particularly when combined with certain antibiotics, seems to do the trick for many coronavirus sufferers.
And Chris Kenny told viewers the drug must surely work because those in the know were buying it up.
Yep, doctors and dentists and the like are putting it aside in case they or their family members get infected. There's your real-world clinical assessment of this drug at the moment.
Chris Kenny also relied on the testimony of a family doctor, Vladimir Zelenko, who'd boasted on YouTube of his remarkable success with a hydroxychloroquine cocktail against COVID-19.
I'm seeing tremendous positive results. I have not sent any patient to the hospital yet, even though I've treated hundreds already with infection.
Now, we know this drug is safe. People have been taking it for those other conditions for decades. So this does hold out great hope.
And next day in The Australian, Kenny was again citing Dr. Zelenko and describing the drug as, quote, extremely effective in preventing life-threatening lung infections, even though the US fact-checking site Snopes had already branded Dr. Zelenko's evidence as scientifically worthless, reporting
Zelenko's claims rest solely on taking him at his word. He has published no data, described no study design and reported no analysis.
By this time, Dr. Zelenko's video had also been taken down from YouTube, prompting Chris Kenny to suggest
you can't help but wonder whether this censorship might have been influenced by something else, such as the way that doctor signed off from his video.
My heartfelt blessing to you, Mr. President. I personally love you, and I hope that God protects you and your family.
Meanwhile, Shock Alan Jones was also praising hydroxychloroquine on his radio show and calling for it to be rushed into the front line.
Given the drug has been around for more than 50 years, it's approved, the data on it is well established, it's perplexing that we don't instruct the use of the drug now with the monitoring of existing coronavirus cases to see the results.
But Jones was then told straight up by the ANU's Professor Peter Collignon that it was unlikely to be of much use.
The reality is it's hard to believe why this drug would work. Now, like all other drugs, I think we've got to have an open mind and study them. But there's as many reports showing it doesn't work as there are. And it's not a drug that hasn't got any toxicity. People have already died from heart conditions by taking this drug in inappropriate dose.
Last week, Professor Collignon told Media Watch that larger and more definitive studies were still needed before we can be sure. But he also said,
I am even more sceptical as more data is coming in.
And America's top doctors, led by Dr. Fauci, clearly agree. Last week, they told doctors not to use hydroxychloroquine to treat COVID-19, at least in combination with the antibiotic azithromycin, which Dr. Zelenko was doing, because it's dangerous. As yet, they've not recommended against using the drug on its own. And in the meantime, President Trump has offered a far crazier idea for treating victims of the virus, injecting them with disinfectant.
And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that.
That suggestion caused shock, amazement and uproar in the media, except from Chris Kenny, whose response was to berate journalists for, quote, as usual, going nuts over it. And he has the nerve to lecture others about Trump derangement syndrome. But now, in similar vein, to more homespun science.
It's the coronavirus fake news that just won't go away. The conspiracy theory that somehow the 5G network rollout is responsible for the virus outbreak.
Yes, social media has been awash with claims that new 5G mobile technology weakens immune systems and spreads virus symptoms. But as the ABC's fact-check unit declared,
it's all bunkum. Neither of these claims are true. And everyone from the WHO to Australia's Nuclear Safety Agency says so.
Media Watch has faced the wrath of 5G conspiracy theorists before, after we criticised Northern New South Wales station NBN last year for airing claims that 5G technology emits dangerous radiation. Mainstream science says that is bunkum too. But the region remains a hotspot for 5G protests, with this rally against the rollout in Mullumbimby only last week. And out west in Orange, yet more fears are being stoked of the dreaded 5G, with the Central Western Daily finding a remarkable new angle.
Failing plant life in North Orange blamed on 5G radio waves.
Yes, forget coronavirus. 5G is now responsible for impeding the growth of trees. One local resident started a Facebook group called Stop 5G in Orange, and that's all the hook the local paper needed to report.
Mrs Baker noticed changes to plant life while living in Terry Turner Crescent about a year ago. It is near a large water tower which also features a phone tower. The problems included missing branches and sparse or shrivelling leaves.
Missing branches, shrivelling leaves? According to the paper, there was only one answer.
Mrs Baker believed the irregular growth matched the direction of the electromagnetic waves from the tower.
Now, there are two problems with this theory, neither of which the newspaper bothered to consider. One, the notion of flora responding to electromagnetic waves is rubbish. Dr Ken Karapides of Australia's Radiation Safety Agency told us,
there is no established evidence that low-level radio wave exposure from 5G and other wireless telecommunications can affect plant growth.
And the second, possibly bigger problem? We'll leave that to one of the Facebook comments on the story.
Wake up! There is no 5G in Orange yet.
Yup, spot on. We asked the telco regulators and Telstra and Optus themselves, and all said there are currently no 5G signals active in the Orange region. So we put that to the editor of the Central Western Daily, who told Media Watch,
the error about 5G in the original article has now been corrected in print and online.
The 5G plant story ran prominently on page 3 of last Wednesday's paper, just above an ad to drum up subscriptions, which invited readers to
support the news you trust
to keep you connected.
The news you trust? They're not doing themselves any favours, and in the current crisis they need some. The Central Western Daily is part of the Australian Community Media Group, which has already shuttered several printing plants and closed papers, putting dozens of journalists out of work and ending local news coverage entirely in some areas. It is a sad situation for those titles and all who work on them. But let's hope those who remain can find better things to do than stoke unnecessary panic with fake news like that. Meanwhile, back in the big smoke, the Nine Network's Today Show continues to lag Seven's Sunrise in the battle for breakfast TV. So, Karl Stefanovic is offering himself up to the tabloids in the hope of winning more viewers.
Karl.
Unplugged. Television's most talked about man on marriage, divorce, fatherhood.
That spread in News Corp's Stella mag was called a rare, in-depth interview. And in it, the paper praised the Today Show host for being
confident, cheeky, naughty, blokish. It's the Stefanovic of old, and not the chastened, apologetic version of the past few years.
But rare it was not, because 2 days later, Karl also opened up to his biggest persecutor in a 3-part interview with Daily Mail Australia, where he spoke of his joy at being a father again and revealed the dark days of his marriage breakdown.
Exclusive.
This could be the most important interview I've done.
Karl Stefanovic opens up to Daily Mail Australia about the mental health crisis that saw him diagnosed with PTSD.
The interview is certainly a coup for the Daily Mail because, throughout his very public trials, Karl has not held back on his feelings about the Mail and its coverage of his personal life, kicking off with this tirade in 2017.
I want to take a couple of minutes right now to call out an organisation which trades in these kind of insults. It's a news website, one which seeks to profit from criticising and publicly humiliating people, women especially.
And that was just part of his attack.
Go hard on me. Make up your stories, publish your lies, send out the paps. If you agree with me, the best thing you can do is to never go to that website.
1 year later, Karl was back to savage the Daily Mail again.
You know how there was all those stories, I think, are ridiculous and awful in Daily Mail and, you know, it's just the photos, but what a load of rubbish.
And 1 month later, he was calling the Daily Mail disgraceful, and earlier this year, he yet again ridiculed the news site, telling viewers,
I mean, that site is just filled with fake news every day. I mean, that's not astounding to anyone, is it? Oh, Daily Mail's got really reputable news. Good on you guys. Phone me.
Sounds like they did. And it's a win-win for both parties. But Stefanovic's decision to get into bed with his regular tormentor did not go unnoticed by news.com.au, which called it a truly baffling PR move. Not sure about that. If it gets the paps off his back and earns Karl some half-decent media coverage for a change, it's a brilliant move. And while he may risk losing credibility by performing such a huge about-face, well, some would say he didn't have all that much anyway. That's all from us tonight. There's more on our website. And don't forget Media Bites every Thursday on your favourite social media platform. But for now, until next week, goodbye.